Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Two Sons Podcast. You have heard that here. You have heard that here tonight. You have heard that here. Starbright. In case we have any younglings out there, welcome to the book read of Two Sons Podcast. In case we have any non-younglings out there, get the fuck out of here. No, I'm just kidding. Welcome back to another episode of Two Sons Podcast. Yes, you have heard that. It is both our beautiful faces once again, and we are very excited to be back. Me especially. I know I've been absent for a little bit, but I am very, very excited to be back, and we will talk about that in a little bit. But we have another very exciting episode for you today. We actually just switched technical objects that we use to record our podcast on. I'm having some problems with my computer. I guess I didn't spend enough money on my camera. So we are back on the good old laptop, just like the good old days, back way when we started this podcast in 2021, I believe, or 2020. I don't know. It was about 3 years ago or so. So just like the good old days, we are back and we are together once again. We are going to be continuing with our mini series of Star Wars' The Acolyte. Yes, the long-awaited show that still is long awaited to a lot of people. If you are one of the few viewers still left, join us on this journey. Join us, join us on this journey to discuss the couple latest episodes. We'll be talking about 4 and 5 because I have not seen episode 6 yet. Me and my brother can give you a little overview on that because he has. But otherwise, we are going to be talking about probably two of the more interesting episodes of this show and discussing pretty much it's getting close to the end. So, got a lot to talk about in this. But before we jump into the Acolyte, let's slide on over, hook and reel, and throw it back to my brother and see how is he doing today.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. It sounded very familiar, almost like I heard it before. Kind of
I
kind of
know, it's
weird,
almost
but
like I literally did the same thing that I just did before, but nobody else would know that.
yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, until now, obviously,
Oh,
just
well,
exposing
spoiler alert, right?
ourselves.
It's not like
Yeah.
we don't practice.
Spoiler alert: we did this before.
So,
But I am doing pretty good. It's always wonderful to be back for another wonderful episode of Two Sons Podcast. Nice to talk about some Star Wars for a change because the last two
Star
weeks,
Wars.
your boy has been talking about some House of the Dragon. So first of all,
Yes. Wonderful
appreciate
episodes.
all the love and support on those podcasts. You guys seem to really
Yes, been
love the
doing
little
great.
mini series on House of the Dragon. So I will keep doing those in my free time. So be on the lookout for I think the third episode. I think I still need to cover episode 3. So I'll be on the lookout
Yes.
for that. Again, thank you guys for all the love and support on that. It really means a lot. It's always nice when we put out solo episodes and everybody responds to them pretty well when we can't get together. So
It's
that's really
great.
nice.
Solo episodes do
Um,
well.
but thank you guys so much for all that. Really appreciate it. And otherwise, I'm doing pretty good. As I was telling our audience before that we'll never see the first try of this podcast. Um, my mom just came down to Florida for a nice 2-week vacation, so that'll be nice. Give us a chance to hang out and spend some time together. So that'll be nice, and hopefully I'll be able to relax and just take it easy. But then on the other hand, I took my car for an oil change today, and $500 and something later, I need to get something fixed. So we just love how that works, right? Just talk about being an adult. It's great. So yeah, it's kind of tit for tat. But otherwise, I mean, think otherwise, otherwise, things are not too bad. I told you guys last week, for those of you that tuned into the episode 2 reaction of House of the Dragon, that I could be possibly getting a promotion at work, becoming a manager of my own store. So I'm looking forward to that and seeing how that all turns out. But other than that, hopefully you guys had a happy 4th. Obviously, yesterday was 4th of July. So for those of you that celebrate America and American freedom, hopefully you guys had a
hamburgers and American Eagles, even though they're not technically American Eagles, and diabetes and Joey Chestnut and tuxedo cats and lizards and hoorah.
Yeah, I gotta say, I think some of my favorite TikToks are the ones like that are just like, "What the fuck is a kilometer?"
It's,
Oh.
it's the one with Kevin James where it's like, ladies and gentlemen, start your, and it's just like all the ego screeches in the background.
Yeah, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, he did an announcement for like Daytona 500 one year, and like he was like, "And gentlemen, start it," and then like it just he was like, "America, and bald eagle, freedom."
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, hopefully everybody had a nice day yesterday and spent time with their family and everything like that. Um, but yeah, I mean that's pretty much how I'm doing. So I'm excited to talk about our lovely Star Wars show, The Acolyte. And before we do, I'll toss it back over to my brother, and we'll find out how he's been doing these last 2 weeks.
Well, alrighty then. Didn't I don't know if either of us mentioned this, but we also both had some birthdays pretty recently. I
Well,
mean, mine.
I did shout out your birthday last week, and then I shouted out my birthday the week before.
Okay, well, in case you viewers care, we are one more year older. So my brother's a quarter, and I'm two dimes and three pennies. So do the math, folks. Let's who says Two Sons podcast isn't educational? But yes,
There's
so
definitely like somebody in the comments that's like, "Fuck, what is 2 dimes and 3 pennies?"
like what even is a dime? Like goddamn Gen Zers or Gen X's, whatever the heck you guys are called. But yes, so we have that going on for us. So very nice, very good. If you also notice, I have this big blue circle behind me, and the reason for that is because I switched my podcasting setup, and this is for privacy. So we don't have to worry about seeing anything behind us, and you can focus just on me, myself, and I. And also, it's blue, so it's kind of like I'm in the ocean. So like in case we review Nemo or something, you know, swimming. I also have this cool tie dye hat because we did tie dye yesterday, so really cool. Got it from Walmart. Recommend. Gotta love Walmart again. Another great American thing. Uh, but yes, folks. I haven't really been around for 2 weeks because I had a busy vacation. So again, wonderful. Like I said before, we went down to Florida and we went to Disney World. Did all the four parks. Like 4 days. So we got a lot done, a lot of stuff going on there and everything, but it was really fun, really nice to get away. As soon as we got back, went to a wedding, so that was beautiful as well. Shout out to the bride and groom. And then literally that Monday I started a new job, so it's been very busy. And it's very nice so far. It's definitely a lot, learning different things, but the paychecks are nice, and I'm looking forward to what else it has to offer. So yeah, that's why I've been so busy during the week too. Sometimes I end up finishing late and I start early the next day, so it's hard for me to coordinate and catch up with everything. But we've been doing well so far, and luckily my brother's been able to do the solos, keeping you guys busy. But I know we both wanted to continue with the Acolyte, and that's what I'm excited to jump into today. But again, other than that, same old stuff, and just chugging along. Hope you guys again enjoyed your fourth. If you did anything, enjoyed the enjoying the start of summer. It's start of July, so I guess everybody's really kicking it off. Having your barbecues and whatnot. But other than that, yeah, I say let's get along and let's get into Acolyte episode 4 and 5. All right. Well, before we get into these episodes, I was doing a little look sheet of the Acolyte on IMDb, and just to give you guys a little bit of an overview. So far, we got about 6 episodes, and it's an 8 episode series. It has about a 3.5 out of 10 rating on IMDb, which is not the best. And we got about an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is a pretty good score, actually. But that is critics. I believe um, fans are about at 14%. So I think this is one of the lowest, if not the lowest rated Star Wars projects that has been put out. Um, Most of the scores have pretty much been 5 or below, with the highest rating being episode 5 at a 6.7. And I am very excited to talk about episode 5 because it was honestly one of the better episodes probably the best episode of this series so far, with some of the best action and everything else that we will get into a little later on. And same with season 4. Really enjoyed that episode as well. So, again, right after that, I heard it dropped off again. So very unfortunate, but we got another 2 episodes to hopefully save it. So let's see how we do here, Disney. But with that being said, let's talk about episode 4 called Day. That's it, just Day. Which is
Great title.
ironic because I'm pretty sure it wasn't Day the whole episode. Just don't know what we're doing with there, but racing to the next target, the Jedi head to a new world as they close in on a clever assassin.
Yeah,
Um,
they do.
exactly, yeah. So let's click on it. Let's give we got a 4.8 out of 10 on IMDb. So but once again, why don't Oh, geez. Okay, sorry. I was reading a review and it was very depressing. But on that note, Philip, why don't you give us a little overview of this episode? What if our viewers didn't watch this? What did you miss of Day? What didn't you see? What happened?
Uh, Obviously, you didn't see night if it was day.
Fair enough. I mean, obviously, you're not like doing like that good. Jeez.
So, to give an overview of what basically happened in this episode, to follow, the events of the last 3 episodes, obviously there is a girl named May that is going around and killing a bunch of specific Jedi.
Yes.
Obviously, we saw in a flashback, and I believe it was episode 3, that, the planet that her and her sister are from, which I believe is called Tanahar, Tanahar. I think it starts with a T, and I think it sounds something like that. But there was a Jedi mission there when they were young, and I mean that's how obviously Osha ended up joining the Jedi. But then we see that the whole covenant is destroyed, and we think May died. So obviously there's some sort of deeper story going on there, but we just haven't found it out yet. Um, Osha's twin sister May obviously survived. She's following the path of the dark side, and she's like basically seeking revenge on all the Jedi Masters and Jedi that were there. So she's already killed 2 of them. Yeah, 2 of them.
Yes, it was two of them.
So
It was
she was heading to Tanahar or Tanalor, whatever it's called, um, to hunt down the Wookiee Jedi. Obviously, the Wookiee Jedi has a name. I just don't remember what his name is.
I believe his name was
But
Minister Cal Kaka or
yeah, it was like
Cal
something along those lines. So obviously, he is in like some sort of self isolation on the
Naka.
planet. Probably, yeah, Kalnaka. Probably from the events that happened when they were young. And I mean, we see a little bit of a glimpse of that at the end of episode 3. Before the episode ends, we see that he's been hiding out on this planet, and then obviously episode 4, we see that May, along with her little assistant Chimere, find out like where he is stationed, and then obviously the 2 of them go to the planet so she could kill him, and then obviously just check off another Jedi on her list.
Yes.
Um, so in response to that, obviously, a Jedi team, led by Jedi Master Sol, along with Osha, also arrive at the planet in order to hopefully intercept May and save the Wookiee Jedi. And then, so basically, we just kind of see flashes back and forth between Sol's team, and then them kind of going through the forest and talking about the Jedi and all this. And then we see the point of view from May and Chimere. We see that eventually, like throughout the episode, May decides that she doesn't want to work for her master anymore, and she wants to be reunited with her sister, and turn herself into the Jedi. Which obviously we'll talk about because it just makes no sense based on what she did in episode 5 and then now 6. But she develops that mentality. She traps her assistant Chimere, and she runs ahead to the Jedi Wookiee's house. Obviously, we find that the Wookiee Jedi is already dead when she gets there, which is obviously a huge negative about this episode. And when she realizes that, then we come back to Sol and Osha's team. They have a pretty interesting scene with a couple of big bugs. Um, and then we see that, both teams finally converge on the house. And then that's when at the end of the episode, we see that this masked figure that we saw, I think, at the end of like episode 1, comes out of the brush. It has this really epic scene where he just kind of stares down Osha and then he just like flicks his hand and she goes flying.
Mhm.
And then he basically disturbs the ground and like pushes all the Jedi back. And basically you're just like, oh shit. And then that's how the episode ends.
Yeah, I mean, so Again, my brother covered it pretty great, and unfortunately, again, like he said, this whole episode is them going to this planet. Again, I'm not even really gonna focus on the planet because I just don't really even think that matters. But we're trying to find this Wookiee Jedi, Master Kalnaka. He's the third out of these four, technically five Jedi, I believe, with Sol. That was part of something significant that happened during May and Osha's childhood, which we've still yet to see, and there's been six episodes, so not sure when they're going to show us what happened. I'm assuming episode seven, because if they waited until episode eight, would make absolutely no
Well, I can
sense.
tell you they didn't show us in episode 6, so it's
Cool.
going to
So
be
I
either
guess
episode
it's
7 or
really
8.
good. It's really good then. Um, but yes, most of this episode is pretty much spent trekking through the forest. We get a little scene with Bugs where um, I'm sorry, Osha. May is talking to I'm not even Jackie, which is Daphne Keene's character, about like the Force. How she's kind of sort of reconnecting with the Force, and one of these bug creatures comes to life and tries to attack, and Soul has takes it down, and first a lot of action we've seen in a while, and she basically kind of talks about how that's something unfortunate in the Force. She disturbed it and it died and everything. I guess showing a little bit more of her character. We get to the end, but we're also kind of flashing back and forth between what was it, Kamir, you said, and Osha, doing their own trek, um, through it and everything, and what we hear a little bit more about, why she's doing this and how she. Honestly, it seems like she really doesn't want to become an acolyte, or she thinks this is stupid, and that she wants to betray her master and everything. So we get a little bit more overview of her, and we get to the end of the episode, which is the best part of the episode. Obviously, we find the Wookiee Jedi dead with a saber slash. So only one person could have did that. And dum dum dum, here we got sexy Kylo Ren, just standing menacingly in the forest. And we probably get one of the best. I think one of the coolest scenes where we have 10 Jedi light up their lightsabers, to face off against him, which, all different colors and a beautiful shot, Again, that was great. And we see, the power that he holds, throwing May and pushing all of them back, including, Master Soul and everything. So obviously, we can assume that pretty much all these Jedi are either Jedi Knights or low ranking masters, besides Soul's Padawan, and Soul obviously being probably the strongest Jedi Master, in this little group. And we, get a couple other cool characters in there. We also have a cameo or is this in the next? No, in this one, we get a cameo of Kalumundi, which I heard doesn't even make sense according to the time. So I mean, again, it's always cool to see Conehead, but if it doesn't make sense, we don't got to do it. We did see a female version of Plo Koon's, Plo Plo Koon's, yeah, Plo Koon's species in
Yeah,
this.
there
So,
you go.
which, it was cool to definitely see more alien makeup and everything. But again, the episode ended like that. So boom, left on a cliffhanger. Again, immediately after I watched this episode, I kind of looked a little bit more into it. Of why they just decided to kill the Wookiee off screen, and I heard it was budget. And ladies and gentlemen, this folks, what this, ladies and gentlemen, this series has a budget of 180 million. So how it wasn't in the budget to have a Wookiee fight for a little bit, um, I couldn't tell you, but that is very disappointing because he's the only Wookiee Jedi we've seen in live action besides Gunji, which wasn't live action, but only other Wookiee Jedi we really seen, and you waste him. So unless they're gonna do a flashback or something, very very upsetting there. Um, but wasn't the worst episode. But again, for to say that is really not good. Saying considering that we're just tolerating this episode is pretty upsetting. I mean, again, it was ranked at a 4.8. I would maybe rank it a 6, and I'm being generous because I really enjoyed the last part, and I didn't mind some of the story, but again, very weak dialogue. A lot of the interactions between some of these characters seem just so fake, and it's really upsetting because we have a great set of actors and actresses here, and I don't really understand what is going on here. I mean, I know the writing is pretty much is most of it, and the direction really has not been that great. But there's really nothing else to talk about in terms of episode day. So let's go to the next episode. And if you haven't guessed it here, folks, it's called Night. Oh wow.
Well, before we move on to Night, what would you rank the episode 4 out of 10 Suns?
A 6 out of 10 sons. And again, the only reason I'm giving that is because the last part was really cool. And again, I enjoyed kind of exploring a little bit more of the characters. But again, dialogue very weak. A lot of space scenes very weak. The direction on the ground was okay. Killing the Wookiee off screen very weak. So I mean, honestly, maybe a 5.5, 6. But between that rank, I can't really pick one. But if this is one of the better episodes, but again, it's weak. Like it's not an episode where none of these episodes are close to an 8 for me at all, and that's normally a decent episode, or really even close to a 7. Almost none of these episodes are. So it's very disappointing. Again, I enjoyed seeing, definitely this Sith esque character, or the acolyte, so to speak. But again, we only saw him for a little bit, and it was definitely cool seeing all these Jedi, and seeing the power in that little time. But episode 5 is really where it was at for me. So again, this one was decent leading up to it, but it seems sloppy. It seems rushed at some points, and it seems very careless. So do with that what you will. I mean, what about you? I'm sure you ranked it like even lower than me.
I'd probably give it like a, I don't know. I was thinking maybe like giving it like a 5 out of 10 Suns, but now I'm thinking maybe I'm gonna give it like a 3 out of 10 Suns. Um,
Damn, that's
like I said,
rough.
I really the only positive thing about the episode for me was, like I said, the introduction of like the stranger, or the figure in the mask.
Yeah,
And I mean, that was at the end of the episode, so it's like that's
I
not
agree.
going to carry too much weight because it's at the end of the episode. So it's like I'm not going to have like half the points like be just because this like really cool guy came down and made an appearance. Um,
Yeah,
Obviously there was a lot wrong. I mean, the dialogue is still choppy and terrible at best. The whole Kiadi Mundi thing makes no sense at all because chronologically, he is not even born yet at the time of the High Republic. So why
I
is he
really
even
don't know
there?
why they threw it in there, and
I
honestly, I thought
really
he
don't
looked
know.
cool.
I mean, I know the fandom is split on this. I mean, I know some people are like, "Oh, whatever, I don't care." Like, so what? He's like, in during that
But it
time.
makes no
But
sense.
the way I see it is that I'm just following George Lucas's story, and it's like if Keanu Mundi drops that line in episode 1, The Phantom Menace, where he's like, "Oh, the Sith haven't been seen in a millennia," and then like here he is, like during the High Republic, like possibly chasing a Sith threat.
Yeah,
It's like, I don't know. It's like I just wish like there was more flow there, and again they had the perfect opportunity to introduce a character that we've seen already, such as Plo Koon, because according to the lore, he would have been alive at this point. He would have
even
been
Yaddle
alive. He would have been,
could have showed us
yeah. I mean,
Yaddle.
he would he would
She gets no
he would
love.
have been a member. He would have been a member of the Jedi Order. So it's like if you're going to show his species, it's like that's where you kind of think it's like a slap in the face because they're like, oh well, we're Disney and we don't care what George Lucas Star Wars was, so we're just going to throw this character
Well, the
in
man
for
made
the hell
Star
of it,
Wars.
and then we're
We
gonna
care.
yeah, and then we're gonna throw this
Really
other
should.
character in, but it's not going to be who you think it is. It's just going to be some random like some random character of that same species, and it's like what are we doing here? It's like pick a side, pick
It's
a
it's
lane.
very sloppy.
Um,
It really is.
yeah, and I mean, like I said, besides that, I mean, I liked what they were doing in the beginning. When it came to Osha, I liked the whole idea of them like of at least her like slowly but surely starting to like rediscover like some of her force abilities. Like not in the sense where she could like pull things, like Sabine, but like in the sense
Yeah,
where like she had a feeling or like she
feel.
sensed
Yeah,
something. And whether or not that's just because of the planet or the fact that like she's near her sister, I think that's the correct way to do it, and I enjoyed what they were doing with that part of her character for the little bit that it happened. Um, but again, like unfortunately, like I said, the dialogue is a huge negative. The whole Kiadu Mundi thing is a huge negative. Um, Even how they killed the Wookiee Jedi. Like, so you're telling me that the stranger walked to the house, got there before May, killed the Wookiee Jedi, and retraced his steps, and then came back to face all the Jedi? I mean, like, it would have just made more sense if like he was there already, like waiting for them. You know what I mean? Like, or like just even if you had the Wookiee on screen for like a couple seconds and he still was killed by this guy. So it's like I don't know. It's like things like that. It's like I just feel like they're not paying attention to their own writing, and they're like, oh yeah,
yeah.
well it will make sense that he killed the Wookiee, and then, but it's like why would he kill the Wookiee and then retrace his steps and then come back? Why wouldn't he just wait there for everybody? But I
They
don't know.
only, I think the only reason that he quote unquote retrace his steps is because to have him face off against 10 Jedi outside, it looked cooler than I guess it would. But again, they could have did the same thing where he literally they could have showed the glow of a lightsaber in the house and just had him walk out of the. Honestly, if he walked out of the house like with his lightsaber ignited, or even again show a silhouette of them fighting, like to really save money if you want. That that is probably the biggest letdown of this episode is the fact that you introduced a Wookiee Jedi who seems interesting and you made character posters of all of these characters and what is important about them, and you have a Wookiee Jedi here who would be really cool to see in action, yet you don't use him. Why? You don't. Why? You don't even need him to speak. All you need to do is have a quick little fight. You could have had a minute fight. That's it. Really cool. Could have showed some strength with the Wookiee. Could have showed the Acolyte skills, but also could have shown that a Wookiee Jedi Master in action. That was very disappointing to me. And when I heard the bullshit excuse, I'm sorry that there wasn't in the budget. Get the fuck out of here, because I don't know what your
Yeah,
budget is on, because
because I mean, even episode 5, right? I mean, like that was really beautifully choreographed. I mean, it was a great fight scene, but that's not $180 million worth of choreography.
no,
So it's like it's obviously
not
not going
at
towards the
all.
dialogue. It's not going towards the dialogue at all.
It's not
Um,
going to the actors and actresses because they aren't super famous.
yeah,
So
and I mean,
Disney, I don't
you
know.
can't tell me that the rest of it's going to like costume design and makeup and creature
No way.
creation because again, it should not cost that much, or I mean, it should not be that difficult. So I have no idea what that. I mean, unless I mean, we would have assumed that like the momentum would have continued from episode 5 to episode 6, but obviously it was the exact opposite. So with 2 episodes left, unless one of these episodes has like a $90 million uh, budget in it, I have no idea where they put this money. They must have just left it there on the counter, and they're just like, yeah, look at us, look what type of budget we got for this. Yeah, we're happy with ourselves. We got twice the budget that Obi-Wan did, and we are just on par with that show, if not maybe even lower.
Yeah, I mean, again, folks, like, excuse me, it's unfortunate to say because I'm one of the people that I I wouldn't say like the Acolyte, but I will say that episode 5 gave me a lot of hope, and it's very disappointing to see that literally we are close to the end of this series, and somehow they really did a great job with episode 5 and absolutely just ruined the momentum train to episode 6. I don't know what we're doing here. Again, I have hope that there's going to be another really good episode in like the final, and hopefully episode 7 is good, because realistically, if these last 2 episodes are not good, then this show is just going to be nothing to anybody. I mean, I really won't even touch it again. I think the only episode I will ever rewatch as of right now is episode 5. And that's because of, what we'll get into a little bit. But again, a lot of disappointment in episode 4. And if they just would have did a couple of other things, it would have been a great episode. But again, I don't. I don't know what decisions they're making in terms of money or budget or whatever the hell they're going to, but I don't know. It's been really disappointing. It's the best word to put it. But like I said before, moving on from day, we got to go to night, of course. And again, it's just in a dense jungle, the Jedi are put to test when they are confronting a rising darkness. So episode 5 opens right away with leaving off from episode 4. And this is where we get the Acolyte, who I believe his name is Cormier?
Chimere.
Chimere. Chimere, who again, absolutely
You can also
badass.
call him the stranger because I think that's what they officially called him.
Okay, well, let's call him the Stranger. Obviously, again, a very cool standoff we get right after he pushes in the back and everything, just shows the power that he has. We also see that his helmet plays, some tricks and definitely is an effective weapon against the Jedi as well. I believe we said his helmet was made out of a specific type of metal. I don't know if you remember the name.
It's called cortosis.
Okay, cortosis metal, which I believe, like you said, obviously can. It looks like it can deflect lightsabers, but it can also dis.
Yeah, so it's
Or
basically a little bit weaker than Beskar. It's not like the same durability or strength as Beskar steel. And however, the Cortosis has a specific element to it where, upon contact with lightsabers, it actually temporarily short circuits the lightsabers.
which
I mean, the
is
lightsabers
very
will
cool.
turn back on eventually, but yeah. Apparently, Cortosis was first introduced in Legends, and then it was brought into canon by one of the Thrawn books that I've read. And then, but they really haven't done anything with it since that book. And then, obviously, now they reintroduced it in the Acolyte. And again, I think the helmet and the brassiere that he wears makes it a really interesting fight. And I mean, I think it adds a lot to like the choreography and the fight style that he uses.
Yeah, again, like my brother said, and again, I'll just get into it. Spoiler alert: we find out that the stranger is obviously the Osha's friend. So again, very cool
May's
seeing
friend.
what May. I'm sorry,
It's
from
yeah, May's friend. Yeah,
May's friend. So again, and again, I really love his look. Very simple outfit, but yet very effective. And I told my brother, and honestly, I will rewatch it again, but I stick by it. This is some of the best choreography in terms of lightsaber fights behind the Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith. I honestly would put it third. It was honestly an amazing fight. It was action packed this whole episode, pretty much. And again, the dialogue was actually pretty decent in this one. Um, it introduced this Sith character or this acolyte or this stranger as a pretty like I don't know what the word I want to put is, but spoiler alert again, we have pretty much every character here die besides Sol, Osha, and May. And I got to give it to you. Sol was just badass in this. Uh, let me see his name. Lee Jung Jae. Sorry if I butcher it again. He is doing fantastic in terms of his acting as Soul, and again, he's really one of my favorite parts, if not my favorite part of this show. I really enjoyed seeing also his dance between trying to hold on to the Jedi values after losing his Padawan. One of his friends, being a Jedi Knight along with the rest of the Jedi, and he was dogging on the acolyte at moments as well. So he was definitely a force to be reckoned with. The choreography between his Padawan and May, amazing. The fight choreography hand to hand was great. It was awesome to see. Um, the brutalness. I'm so glad that they actually kind of didn't hold back and show stuff off screen. We had a triple tap kill to the Padawan in a dick move way. May I say that? We also had Charlie Bennett's character Yord neck snapped. So crazy. Um,
yeah. Those were
and
two moments where where I literally was like audibly like, "Damn," or like I was just like, it was definitely one of those moments that made you like actually. say out
Yeah,
loud like "oh shit" or like
I was
"damn." Like
literally
it was
like sitting
actually
in my
like
chair. I was like,
I
"Oh
didn't
shit!"
think that they would get that Yeah, I didn't think they would get that brutal, to be honest.
Exactly. And again, when we get the dialogue between Soul and the stranger, I think that's some of the best dialogue we've had in this show. The stranger is, he's, says some would call me a Sith. I'm just a man trying. I believe he says something along the lines that I'm just a man trying to do things the way I, see it, or the way I want to do it. So it doesn't seem like he's really inherently a Sith, as like we would have it. And I was saying before to my brother off screen that this is an original character made by Disney. They're doing a good job so far. As far as I know, they did. He's still pretty decent in the next episode in terms of character wise, and apparently, there's rumors of another Sith being in this. So, I don't know if he's got a master or something or whatever. We'll see. But they've done great at creating this character so far, and a lot of shock value in this episode, which made it so good. I am a little sad to see Charlie Bennett's and Daphne Keene's character go, mainly, especially Daphne Keene's, because her character is really interesting and showed a lot of strength. Charlie Bennett's, again, he did annoy me a little bit, but he also definitely was an important character. So, unfortunate to see him go as well. But again, I love the choreography. I love the look. I love how it was a night battle, so it really illuminated the lightsabers. I love the use of his helmet, even when his helmet came off. I love the look of him. Again, very simple. His fighting techniques, the styles. I love that there's cheating in there. I also love the dismay between him and May, and also seeing May's character in this pretty much being like, "Oh shit, I don't want to be a part of this." Um, so again, a great episode. Like, this is the best episode for me so far. And if I honestly had to rate it, I loved it. I'm gonna put it at an 8 out of 10. And the only reason I am is because of the amount of action, and the dialogue in there was solid for this episode. Yes, there were still parts that were hurt. I wish we could have seen more of other certain things, or they honestly could have included maybe, a little bit more dialogue, and, could have put more action in episode 4. It would have been a good balance, between the two. But, again, great job for what they did, and, leaving it off in a very interesting way as well. But knowing that this did not continue makes me very upset. But I'm going to rate this the highest so far, and at an 8 out of 10 for me. Yeah, I don't know what you rate it, but I would love to hear.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I would agree with you on that rating. I think I'd also give it like an 8 out of 10 suns. Um,
Nice.
like I said, the choreography and the fight sequence like really carries this episode for me. Um, I give like some of the points off like mostly towards the end of the episode. Like I didn't really care for the dialogue between like Osha and May. Like I thought it was kind of
Yeah, that
cheesy, and
was
it was
not
just
good.
a little bit of like an example of just the poor dialogue that we've been seeing. And then I also didn't like the whole like like Parent Trap idea where they basically just like switch identities, and then obviously like
Yeah,
May goes
I agree.
undercover as Osha, and rejoins with Master Soul, and then Osha ends up getting taken back to the planet that I guess is like the strangers like holdout or base of operations basically. But like I said, I mean the fight sequence and the choreography has been absolutely phenomenal this whole entire series, and I mean they've done a really good job of showing that. Again, the strangers, or chimeras fighting style is very interesting. I mean, we see it more a little bit like in episode 6, like why his fighting style is the way that it is. But we'll save that obviously for you know when we do our episode on episode 6. But I like the idea of like them bringing Cortosis back. Because when I sat down and watched the episode, I didn't know what Cortosis was, so I didn't know like why his helmet and like his brassiere was like
Exactly.
short circuiting the lightsabers. And then like then
Yeah.
obviously after the episode, like people were doing like Easter egg dives, and they found out that like it was actually like that, and I was like, that's really cool. And I was like, that's a really cool concept that like they just introduced. I mean, obviously, like I said, we mentioned it's been around like in Legends, but it was really cool to see that like actually brought to the screen for the very first time. And like I said,
Best
the
car.
the helmet and the brassiere like was really pivotal in his fighting style. Because I mean,
Mhm.
basically, what they touch upon in episode six is that the helmet is entirely made out of cortosis, and it almost acts like a sensory deprivation chamber. Like, you know how like in episode four, New Hope, like Luke Skywalker wore that helmet when he was on the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
So like it's kind of like the same thing. Like it works in that regard, where basically it's supposed to like tune out all the background noise and everything, and you're really supposed to like commune and connect with the Force. And
Right.
we find out that when he puts the helmet on, he's like virtually blind. Like he can't really even see anything out of that helmet. So he's basically letting the Force guide him
That's
in his
actually
combat, which
really
is why
cool
like
and
his
like
fighting
really
style look
immersive.
yeah, which is why his fighting style looks so erratic and spontaneous because he's just following the flow of the Force. So that's really cool. The character's design, even though it's simplistic, it's still really amazing. And I really love what they did. Yeah, I mean, so overall, this was a very positive episode. I mean, this was the episode where like they had to um like raise the bar, right? And then like you would think that they raised the bar in episode five and then they would keep going. But we saw that in episode six, they didn't do that. So it's like this was their moment to like get out ahead and then like continue this like upward trends for the rest of the season. But like I said, unfortunately, we'll talk about it when we discuss episode six. But they did not continue that trend. I can't confirm that. Um, again, episode six wasn't entirely bad. There were some good parts to it, but again, it just, we were built, the show was kind of like this, and then it was kind of like going a little bit down. Then it started to kind of even out. Then episode five really shot it up. And then now I feel like they just kind of stayed at that same level, like they didn't really improve upon that. Um, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I would give it a solid 8 out of 10 suns. I mean, I agree with you where I think the dialogue between Master Soul and the Stranger was really good. I think it was interesting to see Soul lose control in a way, and
Yeah.
almost give into his emotions and his dark side tendencies. I mean, obviously we see that he has some like pre-existing problems that he has not worked through, and something is haunting him from his past, which is obviously which affected him in that moment, and then we even see that it continues to affect him in episode six. So there obviously is some sort of underlying story there. So I'm sure we'll find out more about that, and why he is struggling like that. But no, I mean, like I said, this was the first solid episode of the series. I really enjoyed it, and again, it was just such a shame that they did not continue that level onto episode six. And even though they didn't, if episode seven and eight turn out to be just as good or like almost on par with episode five, I think the show rounds out to be a pretty decent show. But I mean, like I said, we got 2 episodes left, so we'll have to see when they drop.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're both pretty spot on here in terms of our thinking. If from what I'm hearing with episode six, if episode seven and eight really aren't like they need to be good episodes. I mean, if they're great, both of them, I'll definitely have a different opinion. But even if they're both just good, then that's at least half this series that had better episodes. But unfortunately, right now their biggest weakness is it took half the season to get to the high, and we immediately hit a low right after the high, which just I don't know what the planning is. I don't know what the rest of this series seems to show, but this is an ambitious show, and they did it in episode five. They did a lot of things that I don't think Disney Star Wars ever would have did ever, and they did a great job at it. Again, you got lucky with honestly like having I think Lee Jung Jae as Soul, because this man has done a great, at least in my opinion. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but in my opinion, he really has shown a lot in this show for me to stay interested. Again, the other characters did as well, especially his Padawan, but unfortunately, we don't have that anymore, which can be a blessing, but also it may be a downfall for them. We will see. But once again, uh, you know, I think both of us would really love to hear what you guys think, about this series. Like in our episode 1 through three talk, we were, pretty okay about it. Almost all the first three episodes were for us. There was really none that stood out. And episode four is where it started building up for me, and then five really hit it. But you can't just have that. You need to finish out this series, in a strong way because again, you show you can create a good, Sith like character. You show you can create, some good original characters, but then you got to work on the decision making you make and the direction you want to go because it doesn't match up, and it's sloppy. That's just what it is. It's sloppy, and it's very disappointing knowing how much money you have spent on this film. I mean, I think film on this series. I'm pretty sure the recent Star Wars movies that came out, this is close to, this is, I think, more than half their budget. So what do you, I don't know what you guys are doing in this show, and again, it does not show in a lot of areas. I think like every like land, like area, like the forest and the beach kind of like scenes, they look great. I think the makeup looks great. I think the choreography has been great from what we've seen. I think a lot of these characters are definitely interesting, but you waste a lot. You give really bad reasons for not including things, and you just somehow go down after a high. I think worse than anybody else, any of the show really has done, at least in recent memory. Normally, shows kind of balance out after a high, even if it's not that interesting an episode. It's still pretty good. But I mean, again, guys, we got 2 more weeks of this show. What do we got? We got say anything. We got well, the last one was called Teach Corrupt. And again, I know it featured that Jedi that had that like purple whip lightsaber, which seems cool, but I don't really know what's up with that. And then we got July 9th, episode 7, and July 16th. We actually do have. Oh, very interesting. So we actually do have a different director for episode 7 and uh, a different director for episode 8. And George Lucas is actually a writer on episode 8. So I'm very interested to
Interesting.
see what.
I said interesting.
Yeah, he's one of the writers. They have like multiple writers for pretty much all these episodes, but I see his name on episode 8. So well, apparently also it looks like in episode 7 we are gonna have Ioannis Sutudomo back, which he plays Kelnaka. So it looks like we're gonna go in a flashback. So I'm assuming episode 7 is gonna show what the hell happened between on May and Osha's planet, and if it doesn't, I guess it's up to interpretation at this point. Um, and again, it looks like in episode 8 we have. I want to see. Well, it just has the girl that plays May and Osha listed right now as the star. It doesn't have any of the other characters listed, and I think no way she can be by herself in this episode. But I guess
Well,
right
it
now
makes
it's too
sense because they
early.
don't want to. I don't think they want to spoil too much for maybe episode 8, so they haven't listened to anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like episode 4. The top forecast is definitely May and Osha's mother. This other girl who I'm not sure who she is, May and Osha, and Master Kanaka. So we're definitely getting a flashback in episode 7. So again, it's I'm looking forward to it. Again, I wouldn't say I really lost hope because I just think my hope was really never there after a certain point. But if episode 7 is disappointing, then this show is it's going to be one of the lower ones. Even if episode 8 is on par with episode 5, I just don't think two great
Even if
episodes.
episode 7 is like the flashback and we get like more storytelling and like it's a really cool sequence, it's just too late. I mean, again, you're choosing
It
the
is.
second to
It's the
last
last
episode of your
episode.
season to tell us what happened. I mean, this should have been like in episode 1, episode 2 type of
They
thing.
could
You
have
know, I
did this
mean,
in episode 4. They really could
yeah,
have, or they could have did this in the last episode. Because you're
yeah,
right. It's just it's a waste. It's if we have a 3 hour movie and you wait until the 2.5 hour mark to pretty much get to the premise of what the hell this movie is about, it's a waste of time. And this is what this series feels like, is a waste of time at points because you're not getting to the point. Again, upon rewatch, you could watch it out of order or whatever, but we still don't know what the hell happened. And I'm sorry, whatever the hell happened better be freaking interesting. Because if it's not, then it's gonna be a very it's again, it's unfortunate to say, but it's gonna be a very disappointing show. And final, I think both me and my brother had hope for this show, and I still have hope for it. But I just think it's going to end up at that bottom tier of Book of Boba Fett, and Kenobi, and Mando season 3, and stuff like that. So let's let's see how it goes. Let's give it a chance still, but definitely please let us know what you think of this series so far. Is it something that you're still keeping up with? Have you just stopped watching at this point and I'm gonna watch once everything's over? Did you give up your hope? I mean, I want to see. I just want to see a review. Um, whatever. I want to see a review written on this. Let's see. The action is finally here. Big reveal and great action just after the halfway point for the series. A much stronger episode than previous. This episode will leave you wanting more, but not in the same way the previous episode did. The writing was better in this episode, although some moments and lines still fell flat. The episode was shocking, exciting, and built on the previous 4 very well. Again, couldn't said it better myself.
yeah. I
Featured
mean, that's a
viewer
perfect
high.
summary of that episode.
What?
What?
What'd you say?
I know I said that's a perfect summary of that episode.
Yeah, and then let's go to episode 6, and just to give you a little insight, the TV show format is killing Star Wars. All right, it's
Okay.
this is just honestly, this review is talking about the format. I want to see if we can get another review in here. Um, Kamir, Kumir holding the show on his shoulders. More of the
Yeah,
same.
pretty much.
Interesting concept, but frustrating storytelling. I honestly think that's a great way to put the show. The
Yeah,
writing,
I agree.
the writers detailing more backstory and character history of the Jedi Order and emergence of the Sith is undeniably a great idea. It should provoke nerdgasms in Gen X fans like myself. For me, the narrative of Teach Karak has some intriguing moments for characters like Kamir and Osha, but it also underwhelms. The visual storytelling on the unknown planet is good, and dialogue between two is reasonably good. I think other scenes are less so, particularly exchanges between Sol and May. Lee Jung Jae deserves credit for doing his best to inject life and emotion into a scene. One moment where he has to express anger and frustration with pure body language and facial expression is brilliant, but additionally, he has some weak material to work with. Several exchanges where his dialogue simply either explains what has happened, comments on something, says how something feels, or speculates what might happen, feels awkward. There's little he can do to improve clunky exposition in a script. The subplot involving character Vanastra feels like it's leading somewhere interesting, but scenes of her visiting previous fight scenes feel quite repetitive. The characters have not made fully invested in Acolyte, particularly Osha and May. It is not fault of Amanda Steinberg, who does her best with material. It feels like the mysterious past and fate of these two are being drawn out by the slow pace of overreaching narrative to the point that frustrates. Generally, the visuals and art design are as great as you would expect from Star Wars, so I have no complaints there. This guy gave it a 5.5, but he rounds upwards. Again, random viewer, I couldn't say so better myself. Um, I'm not so sure about this episode, but they describe it great, in the ways that they try with what they're given. It's frustrating and it seems like something's there, but they quite can't nail it yet. But with that being said, I'm not going to drag it on any longer. Um, just get ready for episode 7. And, when we come back next week and we talk about episode 6 and 7, if episode 7 is not on par with episode 5 or not, really attention grabber. I think we can agree. I think we can both agree that this show is unfortunately done with. I don't know if they have plans for another season. I really don't think it would be even possible because of how badly the show has been talked about. Um, but maybe next week the show can be saved. But other than that, guys, I think that closes out for me. We have any last comments, Philip?
No, I mean, like I said, I'm in agreement with you here. I mean, if I mean, obviously, again, depending on how you feel, episode six, wasn't exactly terrible, but it didn't exactly keep the momentum going. So it's a little bit more of a gray area. And like I said, if episodes 7 and 8 don't, kind of knock us out of the park or continue on some sort of positive trend, we're going to be having a different discussion about the show, and it might be labeled as one of the most famous Star Wars projects that had an interesting concept, but just a poor direction. And I mean, I think unfortunately, I think that's all this show is ever going to be seen as. It's going to be seen as a cool concept that could have been something really great, in a huge floodgate opener to like a whole new era of Star Wars. But people are going to see it as mediocre, and to me, because of poor directing, poor act. Oh, I shouldn't say poor acting, but poor writing, poor directing. It just and bad storytelling, and cheap dialogue. I mean, so
I
you
agree.
can't convince me that $180 million cannot go into a fucking dialogue coach. I mean, these are professional actors and actresses for Christ's sake. I mean, these are professional writers for Christ's sake. You can't hire a good writer for $180 million. I mean, come on. I mean, like, this is what happens when you put people in charge of Star Wars that have no idea what the fuck Star Wars is. How are they supposed to connect with the material if they have no idea what it is? And then again, this is just going to be another pure example of why people hate Disney Star Wars so much. Um, Now, there are a lot of cool theories that the fans have come up with that I'm hoping to, discuss in future episodes and see exactly how this story wraps up. And I am holding out hope for it. I really am. I never thought I'd see myself as such a strong supporter of the show because, like I said, I like the idea of the concept. The concept, the
Yeah,
time period, everything is so fantastic. Like, and I'm so here for it. But again, because it's just being poorly written and directed, like it's so hard to like stay on the positive bandwagon train and not just blow the show out of the water. So like I said, we'll see if our opinions have changed, or if they've gone into another direction next week when we talk about episodes 6 and 7, and when we come back for the eventual finale of season one, or the series itself, depending on if it was canceled or not. Um, we'll talk about the show as a whole and see and see how we enjoyed it. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I have for the rest of the episode.
alrighty then, folks. You heard it here again. The Acolyte. A whole what a show we're both holding out for. With a very interesting concept, but a very frustrating and poor execution on Disney's part. So Disney, get your shit together, all right? We can't keep doing this. Almost every time we talk about a show or a project made by you guys, it's just always you. It's not the actors or actresses. It's not the look of it. It's not the action. It's not It's you. You're not doing the correct stuff. You gotta figure out and you gotta remap how you handle your big projects because trust me, the future of Star Wars and the future of Marvel and all those big properties, a lot of people are frustrated with and a lot of people don't have hope for. But if you want to hear more about that, you can find that on Two Sons Podcast. Where can you find Two Sons Podcast? You can find Two Sons Podcast on Twitter, also known now as X. You can find Two Sons Podcast on Instagram. You can find Two Sons Podcast on Facebook. You can find Two Sons Podcast on Spotify. You can find Two Sons Podcast on Apple Podcasts. You can find Two Sons Podcast on Pocket Cast. You can find Two Sons Podcast on YouTube. You can find Two Sons Podcast all over the internet for your Two Sons Podcast needs and your overall podcasting needs. If you're a delivery driver, if you're a regular driver, if you're a student, if you're a mother, if you're a father, if you're a person, if you're not a person, check out Two Sons Podcast. What a great way to start your day, end your day, get through your day, get through your bathroom break, get through your lunch break, whatever it is. Tune in to Two Sons Podcast. That is Sons with an O, not a U, because once again, we are two brothers. With that being said, I gave my closing statements. I'll let I'll send it over to you. and we'll get this episode on the road, shall we? Oh yeah, because I can't end this episode anyway, so you got to do it anyway.
That's right. I have full and utter control of our
You
episode.
have the power.
No, I gotta say that was a beautiful closing statement that you just provided right there.
Thank
That
you.
was really well done.
I'm coming
Yeah,
back
yeah, great.
swinging. You know.
Yeah, he's coming back swinging. I tell you, he's swinging for the fences here. But yeah, I mean, everything my brother said with a cherry on top. Follow us on our socials. Keep
Yeah.
yourself updated on when the episodes come out, and just in case my brother wants to rant or rave about something and just post something cool. So yeah, check us out on those. Like I said, we are on Spotify and YouTube at Two Sons Podcast, as well as some other podcasting platforms for your viewing pleasure. So at the time of this recording, this episode will be available for you guys this upcoming Monday. So a nice little Star Wars treat to start out your week, nice and bright. And yeah, let us know what you think down below in the comments. And like I said, next week's episode we will be covering episodes 6 and 7 of the Acolyte. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for coming out to another wonderful episode of Two Sons Podcast, where we talked about episodes 4 and 5 of the Disney Plus series Star Wars Acolyte. So, like I said, check out all of our other episodes. Check out our previous episode on this series before. Check out my episodes on House of the Dragon. Just check out our episodes. I mean, it doesn't have to be a specific one. Just browse, peruse.
Check it all out.
If you don't mind, leave
Couple
a
dozen.
like, comment, subscribe. For more. Just yeah, do all that fancy dancy, schmancy stuff. And because we are talking about Star Wars, obviously, I mean, there's a certain way that we should end said recording. Because we were talking about Star Wars, and this is a Star Wars episode, and we are primarily a Star Wars podcast, but not all the time, but most of the time. We will leave you all with the May the Force be with you all.
Force be with you guys.